All right. Welcome to another free and open chat Sunday. All right, give me just a second. I think everything's working on my end. You guys that are hanging out in the YouTube chat, let me know about the mic levels, if sound is good, audio.
Yeah, sound is good.
Okay. How you doing today, Alistair?
Oh, I got double audio here. Hold on. There we go.
Yeah.
Sorted that out.
All right. Well, we got a little bit of background noise.
Yeah, I have, yeah. I'm going to grab mute mine. Hold on.
Okay. And Silent Robot's going to join us today. All right. Yeah, I got my coffee. Was up a little later than I wanted to last night. Hung out with the Big Daddy crowd for a little bit last night, and then didn't go straight to bed after that. I had a little work to do after that. Probably got to bed around 1 a.m. A little later than I wanted, but I got my cup of Joe. This is actually Joe's brand coffee in the red box, the medium roast. One of the better coffees out there for the price. Yeah, Andrew's got his. Yeah, everybody's
drinking oolong tea.
And last night during the Big Daddy show, I put Pop! OS on this Toshiba satellite, so got that going. And you guys know I'm not a great fan of GNOME, but the little bit I played with it last night and this morning, it's not horrible. I mean, I could use GNOME. It's not like people like to think I'm a hater, which I am, but I could use it. Like if it was the choice between using something like Pop! OS or Fedora with GNOME and going back to Windows, yeah, I'm going to use Pop! OS.
Good choice.
Yeah. I've been enjoying Pop! OS.
Yeah, the one thing that I mean, I've used it in the past too. I've taken a look at Pop! OS. I'm surprised that they don't do more with it as far as customizing, tweaking the GNOME desktop. It is still pretty vanilla GNOME actually. Mm-hmm. It is not that different from like the vanilla GNOME experience you get in Fedora, to be honest.
That's true, but it's what they do under the hood that counts.
Yeah, I was about to say what their magic happens with like the driver, especially if you had a System 76 machine. Yeah, it's all the stuff that you don't see.
And their software center, the Pop Store, functions a whole lot better.
Yeah, I could see that. I never used the GUI package managers, so I guess I should play with those more. And I've had people tell me that, you know, I'm like, when I take a look at these distros on the channel, you know, I really don't spend that much time with the GUI software centers because I don't use them. Something I need to do more of, because obviously new users, that's the first thing they do is they open that software center and start looking for their favorite programs. Mm-hmm. One thing I didn't like is I went through the install quickly, but does it offer installing the restricted extras, you know, all your multimedia? I didn't think so. So that it's kind of strange because Ubuntu does that. You're basing your distro off of Ubuntu. So why wouldn't you have that as an option, you know? I mean, it's easy. Yeah. You open up a terminal. Oh, you open up a terminal. Control-Alt-T doesn't open up a terminal. So I'm not that familiar with GNOME. Now I've got to go through that launcher in GNOME and search for the GNOME terminal.
Yeah,
you know,
I think they've modified the keyboard shortcut slightly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's a minor thing, but so many distros have Control-Alt-T hotkey to opening a terminal. It just makes it convenient no matter what distro, what desktop environment you're on. I know how to get to a terminal if I need to. And I can add that keyboard shortcut. It's no big deal. But anyway, I got to a terminal, sudo apt install Ubuntu restricted extras, and that gets you, you know, all the codecs, and
yeah,
I think it also installs the Microsoft fonts. I know, and when you do that in the terminal, you have to agree to the Microsoft EULA, the end user license agreement, which I agreed to because I really like Comic Sans as a font. So
I like the default font that they're using in Pop! OS.
Yeah, it's very clean, isn't it?
Mm.
And what default font is it? What's the?
I'm not sure. I need to look that up. The other thing I noticed too that's a little weird about Pop! OS is their their EFI, when you go to install on an EFI machine, it looks specifically that you have to have at least 256 megabytes of free space, which is kind of big for an EFI partition, because usually 100 megabytes or 200 megabytes at the most, and you're fine for an EFI partition. But the reason is because when I looked inside of it, it actually stores init.rd.image and the previous init.rd.image inside EFI partition, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, that is a little weird. Also, I know on the Big Daddy podcast last night, Rocco mentioned this, and I've heard it mentioned elsewhere. Dual booters sometimes have a problem with Pop OS. Sometimes it just wrecks your partitions. And, you know.
I just made a separate EFI partition, so I wouldn't worry about that wiping out my previous one.
You know, I'm way past the point of like partitioning drives. You know, if I'm going to install, especially more than 2 different operating systems on a single drive, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go buy another drive because they're so cheap these days. It's just nice to every OS gets its own drive, and then you have less to worry about.
I always pre-partition before I do anything like that, and always set up a separate EFI anyway. Because, you know, using Grub or your BIOS boot menu, what's the difference? You can either F12 and choose the drive you want, or wait for Grub to do the work for you.
Yep.
What's the point of using Grub?
Yeah, good point.
So I guess it also depends on, I guess, how many instances of Linux or operating systems you're running, because
that's very true.
If you have 100 meg or 200 meg EFI partition set up for each one, eventually that's going to add up. And usually they don't take up that much space on the EFI partition. Pop OS is an exception, but
well, overall, you know, it looks like it's a really nice distro. It's working well on that Toshiba, but the Toshiba laptops are always been kind of Linux friendly. They're pretty easy to. Those and the Lenovo ThinkPads, you know, you can find those machines dirt cheap, especially used, and they run Linux great.
But the thing I liked about it so far the most is that I use DaVinci Resolve as my video editor. On other distributions, you have to jump through quite a few hoops to get it installed correctly. And in some cases, use there's a guy, Daniel Tavusen, who created a script to convert it to a deb file, because it downloads as a .sh, a very large one. And that was the only way you could get it installed. But on Pop OS, you just extract it, and you can install directly from the SH, and it works perfectly.
Well, DaVinci Resolve is kind of a chore to get installed and working correctly on most Linux distros, is because officially, as far as I know of, DaVinci Resolve only is supported on CentOS and Red Hat.
Well, no, it actually works on any distro. It's just officially, you know, monetarily supported under CentOS and RHEL, you know. But you can install it on anything: Debian, Arch, Gentoo.
Well, of course, yeah. So, any of you guys been hopping lately? I've kind of slowed down on the distro hopping. Anybody wiped out a drive or a machine lately?
I just did.
Yeah. What are you on now, Andrew?
Well, it isn't this machine, but I have a 32-bit, a Dell Latitude D820, I think it is. Yeah. And I had a nice Debian stable install on it, actually Mate, just to be different. And I decided to upgrade it to testing, and I screwed it up. So rather than go through that, I installed the 32-bit image of MX Linux.
Yeah.
And worked
it's not a bad choice.
Quite nicely. You know, up to date kernel, which was nice. I guess there's the later ones are supposed to be better for battery life. Yeah. So I actually took the jump then and did a backports 4.18 on this machine just to see if it would work, and it did.
Yeah, I love Debian stable, but yeah, I mean Debian 9 is still on kernel 4.9.
Yeah,
that is a lot of kernels back. Yeah,
it wasn't a problem with any kind of functionality, but some people said it helped the battery life. I don't think it made that big a difference on the ThinkPad, but
no,
I haven't tested it thoroughly.
I mean, 4.9's 2 LTSs back now because 4.19's
yeah. That's true. So they're doing it every 5 points. So you got 414 was the LTS, 419's the next LTS.
MX Linux is nice, but everybody says so, so I don't really need to add, my 2 cents in. It just works.
Yeah. Well, MX is interesting because, just looking at it, you're like, oh, it's another Debian-based distro. It's another Debian-based distro that uses XFCE. We got a million of these things. You think that until you actually install it on real hardware, especially something like a laptop. Because you guys, we all have laptops. How many Linux distros have you installed on a laptop and things just didn't work out of the box? You had to fight with Wi-Fi drivers and whatnot. And you put MX on there, and everything just works out of the box. You don't even have to touch it. And it's just so nice. And that doesn't happen with a lot of Debian-based distros. So,
yeah. Debian non-free is pretty easy to install, and I've never had any trouble with it where I have with others, but in general, it's true.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mentioned the story. My mom had a situation on an older laptop. It was a Dell laptop, and it had been running Windows for a few years. It was slow, crashing all the time. Put Linux on it. So I'm like, well, she probably liked Mint Cinnamon. And it was a chore getting Wi-Fi working on that thing. I didn't want to spend too much time with it. I just happened to have a USB stick of Mint. So when I realized I was going to have to fight with Wi-Fi on that, I pulled out Elementary, the previous Elementary. Had some issues with Elementary on that laptop. And then I went to MX, installed it in 10 minutes, rebooted, everything just works. Here you go. Just left MX on that laptop. She's still running it, for most people, your average computer user. Okay, where's the web browser? All right, I can get to Facebook. That's all I need. So,
yeah, I'd say my feeling is for laptop user, I'm thinking that the biggest problem with distro hopping is the Wi-Fi connectivity.
Yeah.
I've just tried a lot of them, and I had no Wi-Fi. And maybe there's a way to fix that, but if you're relatively new, you just move on.
Well, it's gotten a lot better. 5 years ago, it was quite a bit worse. 10 years ago, it was like an epidemic because so many laptops have those Broadcom chips. Mm-hmm. And, getting drivers installed was just a chore.
Somebody was really greasing somebody's wallet with those Broadcom chips in the laptops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's a problem with proprietary drivers. It's the fact is, on these Linux distros, I mean, it's all about free and open source software. That's all these distros want to ship with. That's all they want to put in the repos. And for something like that, you have to have these closed source drivers, or you're not getting Wi-Fi to work on your machine. So.
Yeah.
Andrew, is it you that was trying MX Linux?
Yes.
Yeah, I just tried that this week because the thing that works best with my machine is Ubuntu Mate. Everything in it just works. I don't have any issues with any hardware or anything like that. But I wanted a second distro that I could use as a backup or a toy or something. And Manjaro wasn't working for me. I had 2 issues with Manjaro. One of them was the audio. I couldn't get the audio to work worth a hoot. And I got the 18, the new 18 release. I couldn't get Mumble to work. It wouldn't install. And so I was playing with my MX-17 in a virtual machine, and it looked very much like Manjaro as far as the desktop and all that goes. I mean, other than Manjaro's Arch-based and MX's Debian-based, unless you knew that, you could barely tell the difference other than it had a bunch of MX tweaks, and Manjaro's got its own tweaks. But the XFCE open box thing is, pretty close. But I couldn't get the MX to really do me very good either. I had audio issues with that where I couldn't get the audio balanced between 3 different items, and I couldn't get Steam to install either. it installed, but it crashes every time it opens. So my machine's still very new, and that's part of the reason I'm probably having so many issues, is it's just too new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I only have old secondhand stuff, so I don't have that kind of problem.
Well, that's what I've been hearing from everybody on every YouTube channel, is they're using older hardware. And yes, I do have an older machine here, and it'll run just about anything, including Windows 7. But you know my whole thinking was I was going to build one really good machine, and it's going to last me a long time. I came across a condition where I could do that, so I went with it.
Yeah. It's something worth considering. Yeah, when you buy like the latest, greatest hardware that just came out, you know, you want to give it a few weeks or even a few months sometimes on some of this equipment.
Trying to run anything Debian stable based on new hardware is going to give you a lot of issues.
Yeah,
that's where I was at with the MX. Is probably it was Debian based, older kernels, older stuff, and that's where that didn't quite work either.
Well, just think, Daniel, in 6 months' time, you'll be rocking.
I'll be rocking. Well, it's 6 months old now.
Yeah.
But you said you had Ubuntu working on it just fine?
Right now I'm using it, Ubuntu Mate, excuse me. And everything just works flawlessly. All my drives show up in the bottom of the sys tray, and all I gotta do is click on them to mount them. I got a Steam icon. I can open up a Steam game anytime I want. The Zoom chat, all I do is click on it, and I'm talking to you guys with no fuss, no muss with the microphone or the headpiece or anything. Everything just works. Once in a while,
you're good to go.
Well, once in a while, and I had this trouble with Mint too. I get some tinny fuzz stuff in the audio, and I have to shut some things down and restart them, and it'll disappear. But I think that might have something to do rather with the sound card on the motherboard than Pulse Audio or the distro. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Audio is still not great in Linux.
It is. It's better in some distros than it is in others. Because
like I still have this situation where if I open Discord and want to do like a voice chat in Discord, maybe I'm gaming and I want to talk to people in a game or something, so I go to my Discord voice channel, and all I will get for 10 or 15 minutes after joining that channel is just static in my earbuds. I won't hear anything else, just this static, and you can't get rid of it. Unplugging and the earbuds doesn't help. Leaving Discord, coming back doesn't help. And it's weird.
Is it a tinny like static?
Yes, it's yeah.
That's what I'm getting to, a tinny like static, and I can barely make out what people are saying.
Yeah, and it's the same issue.
I've got a cure for that. I can send you both a daemon.conf for Pulse Audio. You just put in your .config Pulse folder, and it will override the default Pulse Audio settings, and it will cure that.
Yeah, I have actually, now that you mentioned that, somebody else has suggested that. Before it might have been Silent Robot, but I've seen that around, that there's a line you can add to a config that is supposed to take care of that problem.
Yeah, you just create a custom daemon.conf, stick it in your .config Pulse folder, and that reboot, and then that file will override Pulse's default PA.
Okay.
I haven't had that issue, but that might be because I'm using a digital audio source, not an analog.
But then one of the first things I do is to change from 44100 CD quality to 48,000 hertz instantly, so I've got high quality audio all the time. And I've never had any audio issues after doing that.
Usually most audio problems are solved by installing Pulse Audio control panel. I found that out.
Yeah, the Pulse Audio volume control. Well, the things, the problems like me and Dan were having with the static, you can't do anything with that in the Pulse Audio volume control. It just shows you like what input and output devices are selected. It would help, for example, sometimes you join Zoom and instead of picking up your real mic, it wants to pick up maybe the built-in mic on your laptop or whatever device you're plugged into. Pulse Audio volume control is good for that because you can quickly open it up, choose the correct input device, But, having problems like that staticky noise, you can't solve any of that in the volume control, unfortunately.
If the default mixer that comes with the distro is good enough, the first thing I do is go to all the hardware and shut off all the hardware that I'm not going to use on my machine, like the audio for the graphics card, kill that. The audio that's built into the microphone, kill that because I'm using a Yeti microphone.
Yeah.
Eliminate
if you don't actually monitor your audio from the mic, you can disable that in Pulse Audio volume control, so it's never accidentally selected as an output device. Because sometimes it will pick your microphone as an output device, but if you never use that functionality on your mic, just disable that, so Pulse Audio never mistakenly does that again.
Or just move the volume.
I have to say, I think that this problem you're talking about, Dan, recently started. As far as what you're talking about, Derek, with like when we were in the Discord stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be getting your settings maintained, kind of like what you're talking about, similar to Pulse Audio. I know that in Discord I had to keep changing back to get the correct settings in there to stay, and now I haven't had any problems. But what he's describing just started this last week. I know they had some pretty big updates come through, and I didn't pay attention as closely as I usually do, so I don't know if there was something in there. But I could have a YouTube channel open. As an example, let's say the other day I was watching one of yours, and I might have Facebook open on another browser window or whatever. And if I click on something in Facebook, all of a sudden I'll get the same type static situation that we had with Discord. And there's, like you were saying, Dan, I could either switch panels, which is a pain, and go back and it gets rid of it, or I go into Pulse Audio and keep switching back and forth the settings, and finally it'll get rid of it, just short of rebooting. I've rebooted too, but you can get rid of it by switching around settings. So, I did hear what Silent Robot was saying about, they having that daemon, which would be nice, but it's too bad that that's just not built in to fix it from the start. Maybe it should be a bug report or whatever, but that just started this past week for me.
It just overwrites the default.
I had the same I had the same problem with Mint 18.3.2 when I first started out, and it took a long time before that problem actually showed up, but eventually it did too, and I had to deal with it the same way.
Yeah.
Well, one of the more frustrating things with me is what gives me a problem is really just this mic. For some reason, I got a bad microphone. These Blue Yetis, they can be kind of hit or miss. I've mentioned before that the mini USB port on my mic is really bad. So, like the slightest vibration of this disc, not even like moving the mic. I don't ever really swivel the mic around when I'm talking, but just like vibrations from the disc or a train going by half a mile away from a train track will make the cord jiggle out. Sometimes it just shorts it out enough to where I still have audio, but the audio quality will be bad. You'll hear strange beeping noises when I play back the video, but sometimes it jiggles it enough to where I don't have audio anymore. I'll record something 10-15 minute clip in OBS and go back to play it. I don't have audio. I've got to re-record that clip. So I have become just crazy frustrated with this microphone, so much that yesterday I went on Amazon and I bought another mic, and I'm actually going to replace this one when the new mic comes in here.
I have the same mic. You bought a black one, so I got a gray one.
Yeah. And I love the sound on the mic. I mean, it's a great mic if it worked. If it didn't have that problem with the cord shorting out, and if that port actually worked, that mini USB port worked correctly, it would be great, because I do like the sound quality, but I can't deal with recording stuff, going back and playing it, and having no sound. So. Well,
yeah, since you mentioned that, I've tried to flex my cord as little as possible.
Yeah. And I've got mine taped, so it moves as little as possible. It still doesn't even help, having it taped down. So, again, just a little bit of vibration just can wreck it. And then if I jiggle the cord and short it out, the Pulse Audio volume control goes nuts, because it's trying to find a different input device now, because it no longer picks up the microphone when it starts jiggling around the cord. So that also is part of the problem I'm having with the Pulse Audio volume control.
Well,
Logitech. How long have you had that mic though?
6 months, 7 months.
Is it still under warranty? Maybe at least try to see if you can swap it.
It probably is, yeah. I mean, obviously I'm still going to have another microphone. I've already bought a new microphone, but yeah, I will try to do something with this. And it's not going to be
warranty it. Why not? Because you might just have gotten it back, you know.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's an easy fix. It just needs a new mini USB port. Is really all it needs. So.
Good morning, Derek. Can you hear me? Is my audio open?
Yeah.
You're good.
There's two things you can try for that. One's that blue putty instead of tape. Some people use that putty to stick it on.
Yeah, that tacky blue stuff.
Yeah. And there's also a glue that's designed for the loose HDMI ports you can put in. It's sort of a plastic glue. It sticks, but you can pull it out without any trouble. And you can get those for a couple of bucks.
There's always Vegemite.
Yeah. Just pack it with Vegemite, huh?
You have your Vegemite in the fridge, don't you, Derek? You still got your Vegemite, don't you?
Yeah. No, I threw away the rest of that tube. I tried it, 3 or 4 different times, and I was like, you know what? I just can't do it. It wasn't horrible, but it's not something you just want to eat every morning. I mean, it's all right on toast. Eating it plain, though, ooh, it's bad.
Yeah.
Somebody said 25% of British tourists have Vegemite in their baggage with them.
You read that too.
What was funny is when I bought the Vegemite, I've got an 11-year-old niece, and she just happened to see the yellow tube of Vegemite when she was over at the house, and she said, "Oh, you have Vegemite. Can I try it?" I was like, "How do you even know what this stuff is?" I mean, she's 11. I was like, where have you heard of Vegemite? She's like, everybody's talking about it. I guess on YouTube, social media, like the kids know about this stuff.
I don't know. Could have drifted out of our YouTube discussions out into the other ones.
Yeah, we're starting to affect the rest of the world. Huh?
Yeah.
So I called in about a month ago about Antergos having malware. I've got an update on that if you'd like. It's what happened was their website got attacked. It wasn't the ISO. So if you went into your browser and went to the website, you got a hijacked homepage. And they have 3 servers for their website. One of them got infected. And that lasted for about a week. You couldn't download or do anything. They finally fixed it. And they've got outside auditors to audit everything now. And they know there's problems with the installer, so they're supposedly fixing it. But they've had 2 releases since. They've had one last month and one this month. I downloaded it.
Whoa. We got some audio issues there, Murray.
No, I think it's Chris. He might have his YouTube open.
Yeah. Let me mute Chris for a second. Okay. Yeah, we didn't hear some of that last part, Murray. But whose installer was infected?
Antergos.
Antergos. Yeah. I remember they were having some issues with their website. But whose installer was infected?
Sorry about that.
All right.
Anyway, I just downloaded the website. Are we okay?
Chris, just mute your YouTube video. You've got the YouTube channel open.
Anyway, I downloaded it. There's still trouble with the installer that they've always had. It takes about 25 minutes to go through the install. And it looks like it's hanging. It said install 370 out of 370. And it just hangs 5 to 7 minutes before you get the reboot screen. And that Antergos is the only distribution I know of that Linux that is free and open that you can install to ZFS, root file system. There's a checkbox in the install, but it never works. You can install it, then you reboot, and it hangs. And that's really
I mentioned I've been labeled a GNOME hater. I've also been labeled a Antergos hater because I talk bad about that distro a lot. There are so many Arch-based distros, but Antergos, their installer, sucks.
Yeah.
I have gone through so many Antergos installs that did not work. Either the install doesn't complete, or it does complete, you reboot, didn't really install. Their installer is buggy as hell. I can't recommend Antergos to anybody that wants to try an Arch-based distro. Stay away from Antergos.
It bombed the first time I tried it, and I think it worked the second or third time.
No.
you do the same install twice, you'll get different results each time.
Yeah. It also varies from which desktop environment you choose during the installer. They let you choose like 8 plus the base install, and you'll go and try to install Cinnamon, it won't work. Then you'll try Deepin, it does work. But if you try Deepin a second time, it didn't work on a different machine, and you just can't figure out what's going on with that installer. So
I'm on Antigos Plasma right now.
I've got another question. Has anyone ever used TimeShift to take a snapshot? And how long does it take to take the snapshot? And how long to restore?
You said... I've never actually had to restore from TimeShift. As far as how often it takes the snapshots, if that's the question, you set that up yourself.
No, how long to take it itself? Once you start the snapshot, does it take 10 seconds?
Yeah, I'm not sure
on the size of your files.
It would probably depend on how big that directory is that you're trying to take a snapshot of.
Okay. Doesn't it do the incremental time shot? Would it just do the changes from the last one?
Yeah, the first one is the only one that takes a long time, because the next one, it only will take a snapshot of what's changed. So
That's
most
right.
of the files on your system won't have changed. So it'll just...
I'm going to try that this week to see how long it takes.
Yeah. And the restore is basically the same way. It basically does a diff and compares the differences in what your files are currently on your system and when it was snapshotted, and then it reverts those differences.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is keep in mind, I would limit how many backup entity or stamps that you want to keep in there, because you will see it start to eat up your drive space too. So I always limit them maybe 2 or 3 or whatever, and then it'll delete the oldest one and that by itself. So
yeah, if you're limited on drive space, which on my machines I'm usually limited on drive space, I don't keep more than 4 snapshots, 5 snapshots, because if you just save every snapshot from now till whenever, don't be surprised if 6 months, a year down the road, your drive is full.
So. I use ZFS. I have a W9 system with ZFS as the root file system, and I take snapshots of ZFS, and it takes 0.025 seconds to take a snapshot. And it takes, when you start, it might take 10 megabytes, 100 megabytes, but as you go over time, it'll increase. So I've got 40 snapshots now that take about 19 gigabytes on it. And I can restore in a few seconds too. So that works really well for me. I love ZFS. I'm a ZFS aficionado and passionate about using it. And it works. I use what's called Proxmox, which is a proprietary system with a community edition. And it has their own custom ZFS kernel, and it works like a charm on it. So I've been doing that for about 3.5 years on the file server, and 4 months, well, since April on a laptop and my desktop. And I can't live without it now. Somebody over in Big Daddy mentioned that they had a simple note, something called Turtle, which was similar to it. So what I did was I took a snapshot, installed Turtle on the desktop, I installed a Firefox add-on for it, and I installed a button in XFCE, tested it for half an hour, decided I didn't like it, and then just did a rollback, and I was back to the way I was before it started. Nothing in Firefox, nothing on my desktop, nothing in the panel. It just works like a charm. And I wish they had, I was hoping that TimeShift could do something like that. Take your snapshot, install your app, and then back out of it again. And I was wondering if it takes too long to do that, so I'm going to try it this week.
Now, I haven't played with TimeShift that much. As far as ZFS, I know TimeShift supports ButterFS. You can take your snapshots with ButterFS and TimeShift. Most people use rsync though.
By the way, DT, on your stream, in the lower third, it still has the "Why Use Mac When Linux Exists" title.
That's great. I was hoping that people would see that.
Does anyone know how to get the 7 out of that sign-in screen? I can't find it anywhere. It's not in my profile on that. It's not in the login screen. And I'm not sure how to get rid of it.
What are you trying to get rid of?
you see 7 Murray 7 M7URRAY.
Oh, and you want to change the username?
I want to get rid of that 7. It shouldn't be there, and I don't know how to do it. It's not in my.
We've discussed this before. I don't think you can do it if you're on the Zoom client. I think you actually have to go to the Zoom website and log in, and then you can change your profile over at the zoom.us website.
I tried it there, but it shows Murray in my profile. It doesn't show the M7URAY anywhere there. Yeah. So it looks like I'm stuck.
Yeah, because I know I've changed my username at least once before.
We have.
I have, and I want to say I went to the website. It's been a while. It hasn't been recently.
Okay, well, I'll give it a try again.
Yeah, but I don't think you can do it. Like I said, in the Zoom client itself, I think you actually have to get on the website.
Yeah, there's nothing in the client.
I can say when you install the Zoom client, you activate it for the first time, it asks you to put your name in it. It'll put a default name in it, but you can backspace it out and put what you want to use in it, and it'll remember it.
Yeah.
That's the only way I know how to actually change it.
You can right-click your character or picture and you can rename it. I just renamed it to 291.
Okay.
Thanks. Yeah.
And yeah, now that I've got the title changed, I got, why use Mac when Linux exists. That video sparked some interesting discussions, because I get the notifications of comments from YouTube, and I get things like complete BS and Linux is crap. I'm putting it nicely. Some of the Mac fanboys, the messages I got.
They got the money to spend.
Yeah, it was done in fun. And you guys notice I strategically placed that very first image in the slideshow was a MacBook with a cup of Starbucks behind it. Poking a little fun,
Instead of Joe Brand, right?
Yeah.
A certain favorite beverage of a certain sector of the crowd.
A while back, I remember somebody posted this. I don't know if it had been photoshopped. I hope it wasn't real. But they said, Mac users, seriously? And it showed like a table at Starbucks, and a couple of guys had their MacBooks. And on the other side of the table, a guy had brought his iMac. And he had plugged this, like 24-inch monitor or whatever on the table with the Mac logo. I'm like, are you serious? Please tell me that's a joke.
Got another question about 4K monitors on it.
Yeah.
People use it to get more windows on the monitor at the same time. But if you go beyond a certain size, the fonts get too small. I heard about people having to scale up their fonts so that they can see them.
Yeah.
And the question is, when they do that, they lose the windows become larger, significantly larger. So what's the advantage of doing that instead of getting the 1440p, where it's already scaled properly? I don't see. I'm wondering why there's an advantage to a 1440 monitor over the 1440p monitor.
Yeah, I wonder that as well. I don't have a 4K monitor, partly because I'm cheap, but also because I like using multiple monitors. These really large single displays. Yes, you can divide the screen up to where basically it's like having 3 different workspaces and all that. But why go through all that trouble? You're right, the scaling sometimes doesn't work right when it's just so easy with modern graphics cards. Just plug in a second and third monitor and be done with it.
It just, honestly, it depends on what kind of media you work with or what kind of media you consume. Because even though you're scaling the UI or the fonts, your media, whether it be 4K images or 4K video, that's still going to display full 4K resolution. And all of it's, like pixel density and dynamics. But if you're editing, that types of video content or photography, it makes more sense than if you're just using it as a desktop. I
could see that. Yeah, if you were a professional photographer, it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm at the age where I no longer have 4K eyeballs, so why go there?
most gamers.
I don't think anybody has 4K eyeballs. I think it's more the smoothness that you get as far as frame rates are concerned. But
I can hardly tell the difference in the store when I'm looking at them.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm to the point now, 480p is my eyeballs. That's about as good as I can get.
Well, I remember when HD first was coming out, I was having a hard time discerning what was going on between 720 and 1080 and stuff like that, until they started doing things in 1080. When they start putting a 1080 signal to the monitor, I could see the difference. But as far as 4K, you're not going to notice anything. You get the hardcore gamers that want the high frame rate and stuff like that. But the thing is, not a lot of stuff is shot in 4K anyway.
Yeah. The difference between 720 and 1080 isn't really that noticeable depending on what you do. Like if I streamed this live chat in 720 rather than 1080, nobody would really be able to tell the difference. Now if I do a gaming live stream and stream in 720 versus 1080, you would be able to tell the difference. It's not a great difference, but you would be able to tell the difference.
Well, a lot of that's YouTube compression too. Makes a big difference.
I have an OLED monitor that's really, really sharp and does really tiny fonts very sharp. And as far as a 4K monitor, I think this one has a very much better picture than the ones I've seen at Best Buy.
Yeah, but the question is, are they putting a 4K signal into the monitor? So if they're not putting a 4K signal into the monitor, it's not showing it in 4K, so you can't really claim it as such.
Well, this brings up the next question. Do you need a 4K video card?
Well, yeah, you need a source that's capable.
If you're not getting a 4K source, then there's no point in having a 4K display. Yeah.
Because I have an AMD Radeon 580 card, but it doesn't say anywhere on the box that it's 4K.
It should output 4K. The question's going to be whether or not the ports, because most modern graphics cards, even going back to like mid 2000s, they can output the resolution. But it's a matter of those signals, those old standards don't support, if you're talking about HDMI or old DisplayPort, like DisplayPort 1.1, pre-HDMI 2.0, you're only going to get a 30 hertz signal out of that 4K signal. But if you're, HDMI 2.0 or DisplayPort 1.2, then you're going to get 60 hertz out of the 4K display.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and Dennis in the chat was echoing some of that. He's saying, most GPUs made in the last 4 years or so should be able to do 4K at 60 hertz. So I would think you're good on any of the more modern NVIDIA and AMD cards. So
my card's got a little of everything on it. It's got HDMI, it's got AVI, it's got HDMI. It's got all of them on it, but I don't know if they'll run at the 4K speed. Resolution.
Yeah.
But it's a new card. I just bought it this year.
At my place of employment, we had a guy that got set up with 5 monitors, one of them being the desktop display, but he has 4 24-inch monitors. It's like he's controlling the asset. I mean, we're asking him, what are you doing with this? Because the latitude 5480s generally aren't made to put out that kind of video signal, but we got it to work, and it's he's doing some detailed drawings and stuff like that, so but I don't think he has anything spanning the monitors. I think he's using each monitor for a different part of his work.
How many graphics cards was he using to power these 5 monitors? Is all running off of one? Hey, Big Putt.
One graphics card off the laptop going into a WD-15 mini dock, and I think we had a multiple monitor controller off the VGA controller, or off the VGA port on the mini dock.
Yeah.
My two desktops are using a GeForce 512 mic, 12 megabytes of RAM for their video displays, and I just use it for day-to-day stuff, and it's, what, 2012 technology? Still works fine. But I don't do any video, of course.
As far as Chris was asking, you know, why does he need so many monitors? You'd be surprised. Once you get used to using multiple monitors, it's hard to go back to just one.
Well, I can't work without my two big displays at my desk, you know, and when I come over to the museum and start working on my Linux stuff, I don't have multiple monitors on that. And
you miss it.
Like, I want to move this over here, and I can't, man.
Yeah, you develop some really way out habits with more than one monitor.
And it gets worse. After using two monitors, you add a third, and then you can't go back to just two. Two's not enough. And now I'm on 3, and my card supports 4. I could plug in a 4th monitor and maybe do, you know, 3 by 1 up top in the center, maybe having a live TV or something on radio going all the time. So we may add a 4th display at some point.
What are you guys talking about?
Monitors.
Monitors and multiple monitors, Big Pod. You a single monitor user, or you...
Currently single monitor, but used to be dual monitor.
Yeah. And this is another thing that's gotten a lot better in recent years. You know, 5 years, 10 years back, most video cards would support 2 monitors, but not more than that. Nowadays, all the good AMD and NVIDIA cards support 4 to 6 monitors, depending on the card. You got all those ports. Like my card, I think I've got 2 HDMI ports. I've got a display port. I think I even have a DVI port back there somewhere on the card. And that's pretty standard with a lot of the modern NVIDIAs.
That's what I was telling you about. The best monitor I got with the sharpest pictures, an OLED monitor, and it's got the DVI port.
Yeah.
My new monitor, that's a 24-inch monitor, is the display port, but the picture's not nearly as good.
Yeah, but that's actually not because of DVI, because of technology. That is the picture, how picture is presented. OLED is technically better, even though I personally still more like IPS displays.
To tell the truth, will VGA ever die? I mean, we've had it since...
it will never die.
On servers now, on normal computers, yes, it's already dead because it can only support, it can't even support 1080p.
No.
So
VGA monitors are going to be around for decades. I mean, there will always be a need to have a VGA port on some machines. Yeah.
Servers, every server has a VGA port by default, and probably even no other port. For at least what I see, if you don't have a special graphics card, it has a VGA port, and that's it. Because you don't need on server 1080p or 4K. You just need 680 by 480, whatever the resolution. I don't really know.
For the server, you want to bring out that vintage 1980s monochrome monitor that, you know, weighs about 60 pounds.
Well, Craig Crundon in the chat is saying you have to be careful with computers due to burn-in. I don't know if he's talking about phosphorus burn-in on an old CRT or... Yeah,
that's what he's talking about, I'm assuming, yeah. But I didn't know that was the issue. I haven't heard about burn-in on these monitors in decades. Is he talking about specifically OLED? I think so. I didn't know that was the issue.
OLEDs will burn in.
Okay.
Yeah, OLEDs can do a lot of burn-in if you keep a single image on long enough. The type of display, but...
Okay.
Well, if you have your power save kick in after 20 minutes, you should be fine.
Yeah, I guess have a screensaver. I haven't used a screensaver in decades. When's the last time any of you guys actually use screensavers anymore?
I
Yeah.
don't have a screensaver. My display just turns off and that's it.
Yeah.
Same as you, not for a decade.
Yeah.
I use mine as a warning. I have it come on at 20 minutes, and then I have the screen go blank at like 25 or 30 minutes.
Yeah. Matter of fact, it's making me nostalgic a little bit for screensavers. I may install like X screensaver or something on here later. Just
yeah, because I set my login to
disable screensaver even if it's enabled by default.
No.
Yeah. See if you can get an old version of After Dark working on there.
And Madhouse is saying DistroTube doesn't use a screensaver, even though he's got one on his laptop. That's not a screensaver. That's not a screensaver. That's the Matrix.
I was talking about this a little bit on Big Daddy last night, but I had some issues with NVIDIA card and GDM on Fedora 29. And when you remove GDM, but you're still using GNOME, because I was using SDDM as a replacement for GDM, but you're still using GNOME 3, you can't lock the screen because locking the screen is tied to GDM.
Yeah.
So I actually installed X Screensaver and had the daemon run at startup, and then used X Screensaver as a lock screen on GNOME since I couldn't use GDM for it.
Yeah. And this is one of the complaints with GNOME nowadays, and some of what Red Hat does behind the scenes with GNOME. You know, GNOME is just way too tightly wrapped into Wayland now and systemd and
systemd is way too.
I don't like, you know, how everything is so tied together, dependent on everything else. I like modular systems, you know.
I
like to be able
personally
to...
don't like Wayland, but systemd I don't care about. But Wayland I hate.
Yeah, I actually like systemd.
Keep it away from me just forever. I would like to keep X11 forever.
I'm with you, Big Pot. I like systemd, but if I want to use the GNOME desktop environment, I shouldn't have to use systemd as my init system. Is the point? You know, they shouldn't force you to, you know.
Well, what are you using then? Are you using Kickstarter, or are you using the with that kind of situation? I mean, if you're not using systemd, are you using System 5?
Well, that would be the problem on distros that don't use systemd. You know, it makes it a problem. You can't really have a GNOME edition because it's not going to work with, you know.
It's open source. You can make it work.
Yeah, but you'd have to hack somebody else's work. You know, you'd have to basically do some work for them.
That's the problem.
To make their stuff work. Yeah.
I like to say that's the problem.
And
you're pointing out that open source is so open, you can do whatever you want, but then you're saying you have to do others' work.
For the average person like me, whatever's under the hood, as long as it works with all my hardware, I could care less.
Yeah.
Well, it's open source. It's not the fact that I'd have to be doing somebody else's work. It's they broke this thing themselves. I mean, they should have just... GNOME used to not be dependent on systemd. So why did they even make it so in the first place is the point.
Maybe they use certain feature. I know why Snap uses systemd.
Yeah, and I was going to bring that up. Yeah, Snap and Flatpak both had hard dependencies with systemd. I think both have solved that problem now. I
know why Snap, I don't know if it still has, but I know why it had.
Yeah.
Because it handles its own services, and you have to have underlying structure for that, and they use systemd as basis.
Yeah.
And they tapped into systemd. Maybe they have added other probably if statements. If that is installed, do that. But otherwise, it's probably the same underneath.
Anyway, yeah, I didn't want to rail too much against GNOME there or Red Hat as a company. I don't mind Red Hat.
They say Wayland
IBM/Red Hat now. Yeah.
Wayland's like 5 years out from being actually complete.
Wayland's 100 years out from being useful.
It's not even close.
Everybody's got a target time.
And it will always be 5 years out from being ready.
Dan, I started using Linux full time on the desktop around 2008. Do you know Wayland was started around 2008, 2009? They've been working on Wayland for 10 years, and it's still not even close to being usable. To think,
God,
to think. So 5 years.
Is just plugging away. I mean, it would just work.
So 5 years from now, you're saying, yeah. Trust me, in 5 years, Wayland still will not be usable. They've already been working on it so long. It's going to be at least another decade before.
Who's working on it?
It's mostly Red Hat is really the company that sparked all of this.
Oh, now that tells me a lot right there.
But
perhaps IBM will pour resources into Wayland.
Maybe.
No,
maybe.
Wow. I can't imagine why they would do that.
I have actually, really, when 1710, when Wayland was the main for Ubuntu 1710, I couldn't even open gparted. That's that was the problem of Wayland, not the problem of gparted, but Wayland, because it didn't allow some authentication. I believe policy kit or something wasn't working it.
The other problem is, I mean, really what's the biggest brand of graphics cards, dedicated GPUs out there? NVIDIA? Well, guess what? NVIDIA is not going to work with Wayland, so there you go. Anybody with an NVIDIA card
can't... They have Wayland version for NVIDIA, I believe.
It's not in Linux. I mean, I don't...
No, they have. They have. At least I've seen somewhere they have a specific NVIDIA version of Wayland. And I know it works on my laptop with NVIDIA driver. I could open Wayland.
You can get the proprietary driver?
Yeah, it worked one time. Then I actually deleted everything because it stopped working. Everything, not just Wayland. Everything stopped working. That is fate of my Arch install on physical hardware. One time it works, then everything stops working, and I reinstall.
No, we'll see. We'll come back 5 years from now, Dan, and we'll see if your prediction came true.
This is just what I've heard from other channels. This isn't my prediction.
Oh, okay.
I mostly talk from hearsay unless you hear me talk about my personal distro or machine.
Well, I think those people saying 5 years will all be on Wayland and it'll work, that's optimistic.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's optimistic. Yeah.
Excellent.
Maybe Red Hat people will work harder if they get better benefits from being part of IBM. You never know. They might.
But what's the benefit to Red Hat? What's the benefit to Red Hat and IBM having a better display server? I mean, is that something that is going to make them a lot of money as Wayland? I don't think so. I don't think.
Has Red Hat Enterprise actually gone over to Wayland, or are they still using Xorg? I mean, Fedora is using Wayland only because
but Fedora tends to be more experimental. Rail usually sticks to stable things that work. I don't know if Rail is using Wayland or not. I'd be surprised if they were actually.
Let me
look that up. Yeah.
Very educational, guys.
Speaking of which, Derek, I just wanted to thank the forum for, I don't know, it was a week or two ago, bringing up the whole SSD and trimming discussion.
Right.
Because now I'm trimming once a week where I wasn't bothering before.
Yeah.
I had kind of was nervous about it because of all the warnings I had read on the Debian Wiki or whatever about it, but FS Trim seems to work just fine.
Problem if you go defrag it. That's the problem.
I got another question. How come Manjaro and Arch, they're on kernel 4.19 and Ubuntu and the others are all on kernel 4.15?
Because you will never get a new kernel with Ubuntu, because Ubuntu is a static release. You install it in April when the 4.15 kernel. If you want a new kernel, you'll get one if you upgrade to 18.10. And then you won't get a new kernel for 6 months when you install 18.10 until you go to 19.04. It's the whole point of a static release is to be stable, nothing breaks. You're on that kernel. It's never going to upgrade. Same thing with most of the other programs on your system. You're not going to get, a new Xorg or systemd, all the critical components. None of that. You never have to worry about any of that stuff breaking in Ubuntu, where on Arch, every single package on your system's updated constantly, including the kernel.
The user packages update, don't they? Like I had Samba update on the 1604.
Yeah.
And it was
and they do push out occasionally. They will push out security updates. Like you will get a patched version of the 4.15 kernel if it was exploited in some way. They would then push out a new kernel for you, but it would still be some version of 4.15. You wouldn't get 4.19. So.
Speaking of patches, yesterday I did receive a patch for VirtualBox to up it to 5.22 or something like that from 5.20.
Yeah,
there was that security leak in VirtualBox that someone brought out.
Yeah, they quickly fixed it.
Yeah,
but say I'm actually really surprised at it so quickly.
Yeah, they fixed it quickly once the guy put it out there in the public. You know, I guess.
No embarrassment for Oracle.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is that guy had found a 0-day exploit previously, like 2 years before.
Yeah.
And he went through the trouble of trying to collect on the bounty, and I guess he didn't like the process he had to go through. I guess they made him wait like a year and a half because they didn't pay him, I guess, till they fixed it. And
yeah,
this time around, the guy found it and he just put it out there. He said, basically, "Screw you, Oracle." Here.
So if he goes bug bounty, he should understand the process, not just because he doesn't like the process. He's disgruntled. It was bug bounty has always been a process that is lengthy because they need to figure out if the bug is actually worth paying.
Yeah.
Because sometimes bug is like someone reports a bug that is like UI problem that will do nothing to the security, and they want the biggest bounty possible.
Yeah. And this guy, one of his complaints was it took them 14 months to patch his bug the last time, and I don't know why he thinks that putting that out in the public is going to speed up the process. I mean, if it's something major that requires like a fundamental rewrite of, VirtualBox, just putting it out there in the public is not going to speed up that process.
Change anything.
Right.
Oh yeah, well, you have
a meltdown.
You have a bug, released like that, and all the people that got a bunch of spare time that like to do hacking get a hold of it.
Yeah, only thing they will do, they will push the patch, the bandage, nothing else.
Now that don't work the same for Microsoft. A bug gets out and every hacker's got it. Microsoft don't want. Well, too bad.
Yeah. And of course, for what we do in VirtualBox, I mean, we just do VMs to tinker around. But people that use the virtual machines on servers, I mean, if you have VMs that with VirtualBox and critical deployment, and this guy puts this exploit out in the public. I mean, aren't you kind of like peeing in your pants right now? Hoping that you get this thing.
We can actually point it to the different bug, like how quickly it was fixed. With Spectre and Meltdown, if it's faster than Spectre and Meltdown, then it's okay. That should be the measure, because Spectre and Meltdown are like. Takes time, but okay. Some measures were already deployed on the 9 series, but we should expect the full measures on 10 series.
No.
And next year, around October, November, we should expect full fixes on Silicon for Spectre and Meltdown.
Yeah.
Until then, we have to be scared.
My understanding is the Linux kernel has patches in place for them 2 items.
Yeah, but they're not full patches because some stuff need to be fixed on processor themselves.
Right, hardware related. You only can kind of
not hardware related, because there is on processor there is some software, and that software needs to be fixed directly, not the microcode for that software. It's like it's quite hard to understand.
Yeah. Just quickly, guys, thanks for the super chat, Chris, in the chat. Appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, but the Spectre and Meltdown patches, I mean, they patch these things, but they keep finding new exploits, similar exploits. I mean, it's never going to be fixed with this current generation of CPUs.
Let's be. I listened to this how this works for 4 hours in school. So yeah, I always listen to stuff. We have about hardware 4 hours. I just go, come on, why the hell? And we listen to different stuff like how system bus works. We had 4 hours, and that was half. But
yeah,
now they figured out a new problem in processors with hyper-threading or super threading, whatever it's called on AMD. That's actually again problem when you have like 6 cores, 12 threads. That's the problem now.
Wow.
Derek, I have a question.
Turn off hyper-threading or whatever you have, superior multi-threading, whatever it's called on AMD. Turn it off.
No.
If you
Derek,
want
I have a question for the group.
Sure.
I'm running Debian stable, and I decided to temporarily open up my machine to testing, and I downloaded a backported kernel, 14.18, I believe it was, out of Debian backports, and then closed back my repositories to stable. Now it's working just fine, but I assume I'm not going to get any security updates for that backported kernel. Is that true? And if it is, how can I sort of update it? Do I have to just keep going back to testing?
Yeah. You would have to connect to that. You would have to reconnect to that repo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't update something that's not in the repos you're connected to. So stable is never going to have 4.18 and all its security patches. So you would always have to go back and add the Buster repository or the SID repository and get 4.18 from there.
The reason I asked about that is because I had Linux Mint Cinnamon, and it did, even though it was supposed to be an LTS release, it did update the kernel regularly, but it did like ... 38, 39, 40.
Yeah. That's incremental releases that are actually more or less just security fixes and corrections in code that are not problematic for running the system. Do not change anything.
Yeah.
Maybe like just some optimization and stuff like that. They do not change how code runs and stuff like that.
And thanks for the super chat, Jan in the super chat. Thanks, buddy.
And of course, when these things start hopping kernels, your virtual box gets all screwed up. So you have to go get the extension pack that matches.
And I was going to bring that up. I had a problem with I was taking a look at Pardus yesterday, which is based on Debian stable, and I had to get the VirtualBox guest editions, which are not in the repos for Debian 9. So I add the SID repository and get the build essentials and the module assistant and all the stuff you need to build the VirtualBox guest editions. And I went to all that trouble. I spent like an hour doing this, and it built correctly. I reboot, and it still doesn't work properly. So even though you go and connect to the SID repositories and get this new stuff, don't be surprised if things don't work out for you. Hopefully with a kernel, you don't get a kernel panic. So.
What about stuff like VMware? I mean, about the only people that I know of that have to pay for a VMware workstation are Apple. But for Linux and Windows, you can get a free version
on Linux and Windows. Basically, they use VMware Fusion, which is basically the same software, but on Mac and on Windows and Linux we use VMware Workstation Pro, which is okay, but I don't like it. VirtualBox works better.
No.
Because I remember a while back ago I was having problems with VirtualBox working, but ever since 5.2, I think it's been great. And now that we have the guest software or the guest tools in the repositories, it helps out a lot.
And the new kernels, the guest editions are supposed to install automatically. Has anyone ever had that work with the newer kernel?
I got it working immediately on Ubuntu, on Fedora, on what did I install yesterday? I don't remember what I installed yesterday, but it worked like right off the gate.
Yeah.
Oh, I just remembered it was my own version of Ubuntu using open boxes as window manager.
And as far as the stuff that works with the newer kernels, the stuff that works with the newer kernels, obviously you have to be running a distro with the newer kernels is the problem. And Debian right now, Debian is going to be an issue. So I can just tell you. So,
Debian stable will be an issue.
Yeah.
Oh, could you compile to an older kernel, or would it just? Are we just talking breaking?
It's in the kernel now. VirtualBox gas stations are in kernel.
Yeah. And the latest kernels, I think, starting with, was it 4.18 they started with? It's all baked into the kernel, or it's supposed to be. I think there's some things that still may or may not work correctly.
18.10, I know it's already in here, and I believe in 18.04 it was already in. So I believe it's 15. It's the version that actually goes with the gas editions for 15, I believe. But I'm not sure. Never leave that on kernel development.
And Tim F has joined us in the chat. How you doing, Tim?
If I was doing any better, my name would be DT.
Yeah, I hope you're doing better than DT. Although DT's doing okay these days, I guess.
That's good. That's good. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
All right. I see you got a little facial hair going. Oh.
Yeah, I haven't gotten too close to my razor lately. That's well, I'm in Minnesota, and the
winter's coming.
Yeah,
it's here.
No, winter's there.
It's here too.
It actually got here this past week. It snowed on Thursday night, and of course, everybody in the freaking state forgot how to drive. But the temperatures overnight have been down in the like mid-teens. So this time of year, I tend to kind of let this stuff grow a little bit, just for the sake of trying to keep my face just a little bit warmer. But it does not serve me well, as it's 100% deranged is the age. But,
what part of Minnesota?
I'm about 50 miles south of the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport.
Okay, yeah, I got family in New Richland and in St. Michael and stuff like that. So
sure. Kind of up to the north and the west.
I know what you speak.
Yep. The closest large town to me, if you've ever heard of St. Olaf College, or Carleton College, I'm not too far away from.
Or Bioline.
Hey,
well, Tim, thanks for your snow, because it came over here to Michigan. And of course, when it goes across Lake Michigan, it picks up steam and just intensifies.
Hey, Dan, the only thing I can say is, ha ha.
Yeah.
Dude, if I could control the weather, trust me.
Wow.
Yeah. My part of the world would be a better.
Guys, what is this snow stuff that you guys talk about?
Yeah. DT wrestles alligators.
Hey, DT, would it be... I should have asked you in the chat, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. Can I put in a shameless plug for a new YouTuber that you know of?
Absolutely.
Steve's very own. You guys that kind of take a look at Toss's channel, Big Daddy Linux, I think he kind of frequents there. I think he checks out Tom over at Switch to Linux every so often. Steve's very own is getting into the swing of things. And kind of bringing up his channel right now. And he did one of his first live events this morning, which I had the pleasure of having him ask me to join in with him. He's not real sure what he's going to do schedule-wise. He's still working out some of his, some of the, bumps and bruises technical-wise with OBS and stuff like that. And unfortunately, I don't have the knowledge to try to help him out. But he's really putting forth a hell of an effort. And he's a hell of a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worth maybe a watch if you guys are hanging around and if you got something to do. Check him out. Nice guy. Really nice.
He's done a couple of streams so far, and I've just recently added him to my subscribe list and my notification bell, and that's how I caught him this morning, as my bell was on my computer.
Okay, you were in the chat this morning, Dan?
Yes, I was over on the side. I'm Dan Kelly.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Used to be Dan Kovacs.
Yeah, see, and I saw that, and I think I asked last night on Toss's stream, or I asked Toss offline if Dan K was the same Dan K that I knew. Great that I know that. Awesome.
Yes. I did that because I have another name for like Mumble and the gaming system, and then I have that. Dan Kovacs was on the YouTube, and I just wanted to switch everything to the same name.
Gotcha. Hey,
for security reasons.
Awesome. At least I know it's you. And hey, Dan, thank you for jumping on Steve's live stream this morning. It was really nice of you. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, I've actually subscribed to Steve's channel. I actually was watching one of his recent videos yesterday or the day before. Yeah, you're right. He's you know, he's finding his voice, and he's doing good stuff.
Yep. Thanks a lot for the plug, DT.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Let's see.
You guys were talking about kernel releases here. I actually have a question from the technical minds here.
That's none of us here, but we'll see what we can do.
the great technical minds of today.
Yeah, you joined the wrong stream, Tim.
I'm in the wrong spot. I have a question for you. I had to take some time off computing, and when I came back, I had thrown Ubuntu 18.10 on my trusty and tried HP laptop. And when I was trying to do streams through Google Hangouts, the usual thing that we do on Taz's stream, no matter what web browser I was using, the window with the chat in it or the Hangout in it would freeze up. It would jam up on me. I used to be able to switch browsers and not have a problem. Now, this last week I was screwing around. I was getting caught up on stuff that got released. I tried Elementary. I had the same thing. Now I reverted back to Ubuntu 16.04, and then I did throw the GNOME desktop on top of it. But will kernels in the very bottom of the say hierarchy of distros, you have the kernel. Would a kernel have effect on web browser performance, video performance, things of that nature?
I can't imagine why.
I know, no. As far as I know, no, because as far as Linux kernel, which is a monolithic kernel, doesn't actually have any of this stuff. It maybe the browser itself that are either newer versions have problems with the structure that the Hangouts use, the Google uses. Maybe the whole Java is broken or something. How JavaScript is broken or something like that on the newer.
And you mentioned Hangouts and YouTube, both being Google products. Did you try Chrome?
Yeah, I did. And see, here's the thing. This, just to throw another monkey in the wrench here. Last night when I was having issues, it was on Elementary 5.0, the newest release. I tried Chrome, I tried Vivaldi, and I tried Opera. Generally, when I was having these problems before, I think DT, you can remember, Vivaldi seemed to be working for me okay.
Yeah.
But
Vivaldi uses the same engine as Chromium, so Hangouts works perfectly fine on Vivaldi. Usually.
Try Chromium, the basic Chromium.
Okay, maybe I'll give that a try, because last night it was giving me problems on Elementary 5.0, and then just as some fun on Tassa's stream, I said, okay, let's time how long it will take Tim to install Ubuntu 18.10 and get back on the chat. So I did that. I had the same problems. So I actually jumped off the chat, and last night I installed Ubuntu 16.04, albeit an older kernel. And today, this morning, I was on another hangout with Steve this morning. No issue whatsoever. And I am using the same version of those browsers between all three distros I've been on in the last 14 hours.
You mentioned the YouTube chat was also kind of messing up. The YouTube chat for me is almost unusable on Firefox as far as like what the users that are watching us, that they're chatting right now. Right now, they're spewing a lot of hate about System D. Sometimes this stuff is not even readable in Firefox, especially if I start getting a lot of people. We've got about 74 people watching, 75 people watching. If I get like 150, 200 people and there's a lot of chatter, it is almost unusable, because it's like it freezes. The window will freeze for minutes at a time, and then it'll jump ahead and you'll miss 100 comments.
Those are Linux problems.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's it doesn't happen on Chromium. I mean, I've tried Vivaldi, and it's not this bad. But Firefox, it's buggy as hell.
I don't have Chrome or any other version of Chromium installed. I just have Firefox, and it works perfectly on everything.
Yeah.
But it might be that there is some version of JavaScript inside kernel. That could be that JavaScript is inside kernel and kernel is. But as far as I'm aware, JavaScript is shipped with the browser, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably,
I doubt it's a kernel problem. Yeah.
Yeah, Tim, all I can say is I've been using the same distros you have with the Ubuntu 1804 and the 1810, and I'm using Vivaldi for the Hangouts, and I haven't had any problems with it. Matter of fact, it's my preferred browser to do Hangouts on.
I use Firefox, and I have no problem with the chat on GNOME version of Firefox. GNOME version of Ubuntu 1810.
It's been my experience over the last few months that I've had to, a couple of times switch either to Chromium or to Firefox for a while, because one of them was having problems, say with YouTube. I think that's the most challenging, app I have for them. And there were just times when Firefox would start running away and be loading up RAM and doing crazy things. I went to Chromium, that went away. Then Chromium started having problems. Went back to Firefox, it was okay. So I've decided just to keep both on there and switch when one doesn't work right.
Well, Tim, your problem's when you do a Hangout Live, isn't it?
Yeah, Hangout Live. Everything else, I bar none, no issues on anything. Zoom has worked fine, not a problem with that. I'm using the Zoom app. I'm not going through the browser. Everything else works great. I have no problems watching any videos on YouTube. I have no problems viewing anything. Everything this works wonderfully.
I have runaway RAM problems with Firefox intermittently as well. It'll just consume everything, even your mouse locks up. But it doesn't happen very often, but it's regular enough to be annoying.
I don't have any problem with Firefox. Okay, I do update religiously, but I use Ubuntu, so no really big updates available.
Tim's problem's exclusively when he goes live on a Hangouts with some other channel and sits in as a guest with video.
Yep, 100% that, nothing else.
It could just be, I don't know, something with the network connection causing a problem.
I guess something like network stack or network connection.
I looked at that, and where I usually do Hangouts, when I'm sitting on my computer, when I'm in the house here, where I'm usually sitting, I have 50 to 55 meg coming in, and the strength on my from the wireless point to my machine is 95% or better.
It doesn't actually matter what strength it is, at least for now, because you must understand that wireless transmits less than your actual internet provider provides you, because with the way wireless works. What technology do you have for wireless? Is it N or BG, or what is it? That's actually important. If it's wireless N, wireless AX, what is it?
This laptop is just about a year old, so I'm going to guess that it's M.
I don't know. Believe wireless N plus.
Oh, it's for
gigabit.
you.
Gigabit,
I'm not here,
but I'm not sure. I believe that's gigabit, but I'm not sure.
If it's a Euro, probably AC. It wouldn't be older than N, but it's probably AC.
Okay.
Maybe AC. I know I have on my. I have believe AC or AX. I don't really remember. But
And we
my
were
laptop
talking.
is like couple
While we're
of
talking,
months old release time.
while we're
It just
talking about connectivity issues, I was having some buffering in the stream. I think it's better now, but I know the last few minutes we were having some issues. So sorry about that, guys. I'm not sure what's going on here.
You know, it's the only thing for me is it's strange for me that I use a more current distro, and I have the issues. And when I fall back a couple of releases, I don't have the issues. And one of the and to me, and again, I'm not the technical mind that some of you guys are, the tech side. To me, the one underlying thing is the kernel. You know, everything within the OS is built from the kernel up, and it's like, you know, I've tried different web browsers and whatnot. There's got to be a commonality with newer distros, and it could simply be a hardware problem. I don't think it's a connectivity problem, because anything else that I do on this machine, not a problem.
Well, after saying that it's OS, I gotta say that kernel is actually like something like 8% of an actual operating system.
Okay.
So you should understand that 92% of the other stuff could be wrong, and 92% of other stuff is like Java engine, Java script engines, and stuff like that, and all that could be wrong. And maybe the newer version does that. So
does it matter what desktop environment you're running, Tim?
None. I can be on elementary with Pantheon. I can be Ubuntu with the Ubuntu, you know, bounce stock Ubuntu desktop, or throwing the regular vanilla GNOME desktop at it. Makes no difference.
Have you tried a different computer?
The only Linux machine that I use to any degree is the one that I've got here, my HP. Everything else in the house is Chromebook, or I have an iMac that got turned on last summer to update.
You could bootcamp that old iMac.
What's that?
If you don't use that iMac, you could bootcamp it easily.
I'm not gonna do that, because I actually have a family member that does some publishing, and they use a Mac. I didn't even know this. I didn't really know what they did for a profession and whatnot.
Actually, it doesn't matter. Mac stays on, so
I'm gonna give them. I'm actually giving that computer away, so I'm leaving it where it is.
So it actually doesn't matter, because at the end of things, Mac must stay on. You cannot delete Mac off of it. So there is a piece of software called Bootcamp on it, and that one keeps for like a dual booting. That's a dual booting system, and that one can only work and can only boot to anything else if Mac is on. So basically, you just partition the drive, and in Bootcamp you give him the ISO. It will boot into that one. So once if you want to go to Mac, you just click the button, and it will go. It will next boot. It will reboot to Mac, and you can then just, I believe it's a couple of things to change in Bootcamp. It actually deletes Linux off completely.
Cool.
I believe that's how last time I saw Bootcamp working. And
you know, this
as
isn't
far
a
as
great.
I know, Bootcamp, it was actually in there. Just there's a fun trivia. Bootcamp was given in there because what Microsoft guy was named, I don't remember, and Steve Jobs were great friends, and that's because they actually put in Bootcamp. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there, because what's his name?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm giving that computer away. I have no use for it.
Well, what you might try, Tim, is just for Hangouts or whatever, is just use a live USB stick with your favorite distro, maybe on a different machine.
You know what, though? Now, this morning, I was on Steve's, like I said, after putting 1604 on this machine. Runs flawlessly. I had no hiccups during Steve's stream this morning. Thing runs great. So maybe it's just one of those things with the particular hardware I have. Might just be a smart practice just to stick with something, you know, maybe not the current LTS, maybe the LTS prior to it.
I personally think you should actually research it more, because it could be something really, really like in OS, like JavaScript engine. So you can then report it to the guys. But you could also try a completely different distro, like maybe Fedora would. You would see if it works or not, because Fedora is actually newer, a lot newer than 8.10.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna have a lot more bleeding edge packages on it.
Yeah. Sometimes so bleeding edge it actually bleeds.
Yeah, that you actually bleed physically.
You bleed, and probably
from your eyes,
just from every orifice you have, and where you can't even bleed out of.
This works fine with your Chromebook, though, right?
Yeah, the couple of times I've been on it, the two that I've got, I haven't even set them up yet. I haven't had time to.
I was thinking maybe it was something in your router actually blocking access or trying to block access through the Hangouts.
You know, that would make sense, but it would have to happen across every distro that I've had in the last 14 hours. The only commonality with the issue I've got is the newest LTS, Ubuntu, or anything based on it.
Well, what about like anything going on in SE Linux or in PAM or anything like that?
I'm not technical. I'm not technical enough to dig that deep. That's the thing.
It's probably something concerning anything else in kernel. Kernel is basically hardware support.
And I'm kind of with Tim too. I wouldn't want to dig too deep just to use Hangouts. I mean, this isn't something I'd want to.
It's one of those things where I just throw the question out there.
Yeah. It is a strange issue. I know you've had it for a while, and it's just something specific to your hardware on that machine. It seems like that's the only machine that gives you fits. So.
Yeah.
Tim likes to hang out, and his machine's throwing nails at him when he tries to do it.
Oh, I was so angry last night.
What you should do, Tim, is anybody that wants you to join a Hangout, just convince them to use Zoom or Jitsi or Mumble or Skype. Well, not Skype.
Skype. Don't use Skype.
Don't use Skype.
You know, I remember when Skype was the bomb, and then suddenly everybody hates them.
Yeah, Skype was really good before Microsoft bought it.
No, Skype was good even after
I think
Microsoft
it was going downhill when Microsoft bought it. So
actually, Microsoft bought it when it was already going downhill, but for a while it was still okay.
Right.
Then it was like crap.
Just quickly, we got a couple of people that have joined us here in the last few minutes. I know Adam is in the chat. He's looking all right. Ben Fitzpatrick is here, but he's got no video. It's just a black screen, so I'm not sure Ben.
It's my webcam. It's an HP webcam. It sucks.
That's fine. I was just wondering if you had hopped or something, because it's strange how you have no display at all, and not even your name is up. Kaizoku is also here, so.
It's this webcam. No matter if I use Mac, Linux, Windows, it doesn't work.
That's just the hardware problem.
I don't know. It's
talking about sorry.
It's the fact
talking about the conferencing.
Knees and get unplugged and plugged back in constantly for it to.
Right.
And I
talk about
the no energy state to get on my knees right now.
Yeah. Hey Ben, your audio is a little low, so if you can bring that up, that'd be great. What were you saying, Chris?
I mean, we got a little bit into conferencing software. I was just wondering about GoToMeeting or Cisco, the WebEx, stuff like that. I mean, has anybody really had any problem or experience with it on Linux? I mean, I use it on Windows at work all the time, but I mean, that's not what we're here for.
GoToMeeting is bad, really bad.
Okay, well, we straightened that out.
Didn't really test any of the software.
Yeah, I don't mind WebEx, but I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it either. It just seems a little more complicated than what we need for here.
The best advantage to Hangouts is that it's free and it'll hold up to 10 people.
No. Yeah. Well, a lot of the video conferencing software, I mean, it depends on your needs. Like, yeah, you're right. For what I do here, I don't need anything more than Zoom or Hangout or Skype even. So.
Well, Zoom seems to work.
Yeah, Zoom works the best, I think.
It seems to become a favorite of YouTubers. Especially if they want to have more than 10 people in their environment.
Well, yeah, the Zoom client, assuming you have the paid version, their premium version, which I do, I pay them $15 a month for this. If you don't have the paid version, you can't have more than 3 people on a conference call for longer than 40 minutes. There's some kind of time limit to it. So I've got the premium version, and I think it supports hundreds. Maybe 1,000 people. I mean, this software, when it talks about video conference, we could have seriously 500 people join this call right now, and Zoom would handle that no problem. So,
Big Daddy had 22 people at one time on his box.
No.
Holy smoke!
Go ahead.
The only thing I haven't seen on here is being able to present your desktop.
Actually, you can do that.
You can, yeah.
On Zoom, there's a share feature. Yeah, there is.
Share screen feature, yeah.
So for $15 a month, you get more users and you eliminate the headache. The headaches.
Right. If you do Zoom for free, then if you are on a video call with just one other person, you and that person, that family member, for example, y'all can talk all day long. But the minute a third person joins, you guys are now on a 40-minute timer. In 40 minutes, the call will end. So, and we're checking out the screen sharing feature here. Although we don't have a screen, Ben, it's just a white background.
That was weird.
Yeah.
I'm not screen sharing.
All right. Hey, Ben, you know what just happened?
What?
Your webcam turned on and showed you sitting there in your underwear this Sunday morning.
Oh, yeah, really.
Great. There goes my breakfast.
Hey, I'm glad you mentioned that, Tim, because I did something last night. Some of you guys that were here last week may have noticed. I re-uploaded last Sunday's Free and Open Chat Sunday because I had to delete the old one at a viewer request. You guys know Pizza Loving Nerd. You know,
sure.
He's 13, 14 years old. Well, I guess he joined us on the video call last week, and maybe he doesn't know how Zoom works, but he was on camera for a few seconds. And then he wasn't. Then he emailed me and says, "You know what? I really don't like showing my face on the internet. Can I download that video, that 2-hour video we did, edit my face out, send it back to you, and you re-upload it?" I said, "Sure, no problem." So we re-uploaded it without Pizza's face in it. So that's why.
I was wondering about that. I'm not particular like that. So if someone wants to include my camera in there, so what?
Yeah, normally I wouldn't even bother, but I was like, well, you know, he's a minor. He doesn't want to be on the internet. I was like, sure. And he's got his own YouTube channel. I know he knows how to use video editing software. I was like, sure, just rip off the MP4 from YouTube, edit it however you want, send it back to me, and I'll re-upload it. So
his parents allow him to use the internet as long as he does not show his face on it.
Right.
Right. Because, you know, I understand he's young.
That makes sense.
He doesn't want to get in trouble. I understand that.
Yeah. And I had a little fun with him when I re-uploaded the video. I was like, I'm re-uploading this because last week on the video chat, somebody joined the video chat and was shocked that they were on video. Like I put it all in quotes. But it's all good. So.
Yeah, that's funny.
It was like me when I was first came on, and I forgot to mute the audio on the several sources I was using too. So
yeah,
that was my phone. I'm sorry.
That's all right. You on an iPhone?
No, Android.
Really? Wow, Ben, you have all those Macs, but you do not have an iPhone. That's strange.
I sold it.
Okay. Sounds like there's a story behind that.
I only have one Mac now.
He's using it to prop up that one short leg on the coffee table, I think.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment to Serge. He says he's said a couple of times, do Stace and check my browser. Serge, I'm not in the business. Spend a lot of time troubleshooting on my machine. This simply because I don't have that heavy technical background, and secondly, I'm a user. I'm not a problem solver when it comes to my machines, unless I really, really need to. I appreciate the viewpoint, but you know what? Even if I was to do the Stace command with my browser, now that I've reverted back to 1604, I'm having 0 issues. So that's going to tell me 0 issue. So I appreciate the viewpoint and appreciate the tutorial there. And if I have problems, I will make sure I keep that in my toolbox. Thanks.
I mean, even these days, I have so little free time. I fix the issues I know how to fix, but if it requires me reading a lot, like in the wikis and stuff, to find a problem, you know what? I don't have time to be Mythbusters, right? I don't have time to go. not nowadays. When I was younger, maybe, but now
maybe if there's something, if I just happen to have a block of time on my hands, and I have nothing else that I'm interested in doing, which is very seldom nowadays, I have to be really freaking bored and really have nothing else going on to want to try to chase a technical gremlin. I want to turn this thing on and I want it to work. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to do the easier thing, because I can spend 3 hours trying to trace a problem. And I know that I'm going to get roasted because, devs want to know about these problems so they can fix them. I get it. I'm sorry. But for me, I can install a new OS on this machine and have it up and running and on the web and doing the things I do every day in 20 minutes. That's a hell of a lot better use of my time. And, maybe I'll get a little bit more technical as time goes on, but I doubt it.
Use what tools works for you, not what someone else tell you. Yeah. It's like the philosophy I'm trying to build my channel on.
Yep.
Yeah, I spend all day at work, all week, trying to fix problems. The last thing I want to do is come home and have to fix my own problems on my machine.
I've heard that from a lot of people. If you're in that line of business, the last thing you want to come home and do is do that sort of work at home.
It's like auto mechanics. They work all day fixing cars. They have the worst cars on the road because they don't want to come home and fix them.
They totally do.
And then they get home.
I can't be stable all the time. I don't want to deal with new issues.
They come home and the neighbor comes trampsing across the driveway saying, "Hey, I got an engine light on my car." Yeah, that's the last thing
I know that story.
That's the last thing I would want to hear.
I used to be an auto mechanic about 15, 20 years ago, and it was like this. Either I got to the point where I could get out of the junk and just buy a brand new one and have a warranty.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I know a guy who has an IT company. Actually, he fixes computers, and his computer goes to a other company that like 3 kilometers away from his, and they fix his computer. He doesn't want to deal with his stuff or his company. He rather put it to someone else.
No.
Well, anybody that runs a YouTube channel or that they own a business, you have to understand at some point there's a very fine line between
work and fun. Yeah.
Well, on top of that, how much is your time worth?
Yeah.
If you a guy like Derek, he wants to get a video out, and if he has to spend a half a day trying to fix something, and he doesn't get the video out.
Well, I had this situation on that last video I made with Partis. I keep coming back to how bad that distribution was. It's because I have a block of time, of a couple of hours, 2-3 hours to record this thing, edit it, get it uploaded, and it took me over an hour to get this thing installed. And this is a Debian-based distribution, so you guys probably, if you watch that video, I'm frustrated because I didn't have this kind of time to spend on what should have just been, hey, install it and take a look at it. And these days, I just like things that work. You know, I don't like broken things. I got to research the problem again. I'm not Mythbusters, right? I don't want to be.
Yeah, my issue is always that whenever I have like a nice working system and everything's great, and it's like, oh yeah, I want this new shiny piece of hardware, and then suddenly things don't work well, and then you give it some time, and people solve the problems or whatever, and then, oh yeah, that works, but then I buy another piece of hardware, and then that doesn't work. That's my most frustrating part. Is just you can't have current hardware. It seems it's really frustrating.
Especially
I would no less use a coffee mug in the morning with a hole in the bottom of it any more than I would want to use an OS that just doesn't boot when I turn on the damn machine. That's all there is to it.
I just bought this 4K monitor, and like it's a great monitor. I love it, but because I don't have two 4K monitors, I just have one and a 1080p. Suddenly everything just doesn't want to work properly. Some things are gigantic on this screen, small on that one, and I'm just like, okay, well, this is not very useful. So
and it's one of those kind of goofy, stupid things that this come up, and that's something. You got a new monitor. Yeah, it's going to have to be a little bit of time invested in it, possibly, and you kind of get warmed up to that idea, to a perspective. But just getting your core system to turn on and run and do what you're looking for it to do. That, man, talk about just a pain in the neck some days.
Although I did notice, we were on Biddle last night talking about Pop! OS. I did notice they have some kind of support for mixed DPI screens built in, but I haven't tried it yet. I'm kind of afraid to, because everybody said that dual booting that is a nightmare. So
it is because of the installer.
Yeah.
Now if I have like a totally separate disk, will it?
No, you're good. Yeah, if you got your own separate drive, that's fine.
Unplug the one you have. Main.
Just unplug your main drive.
Just install on the other drive.
Yeah. My main drive is a NVMe drive, so that's not likely to be unplugged.
It is really easily. Just I can do it on my laptop if I wanted to.
Well, no, it's just the fact that it's underneath the heatsink on my motherboard, so I'd have to.
You would have to take apart some other stuff just to get to it. Huh?
Yeah.
TT, have you given Pop!
I got to jump off. It was good talking with you. See you next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks for stopping by, Chris. We're actually about to wrap this up in a couple of minutes, too. But Tim was asking about Pop! OS. Yeah, I installed it last night, Tim, in the middle of Big Daddy Linux Live. I put it on one of my laptops because they mentioned so.
Is that the challenge from Big Daddy?
That is, yeah. And they want to do Pop! OS, which, to be honest, I've never been that big of a fan of Pop! OS. I don't like GNOME, but I don't like their version of GNOME as far as it's very plain vanilla GNOME. I don't think it's very usable. For me, I would have to install a lot of extensions to make this thing usable for me. So I don't like that aspect of it. Everything they do under the hood, though, I mean, things just work on it. Other than they don't install the Ubuntu restricted extras out of the box. Big fail on that. So
that's the problem with distros. You find distros and you test a bunch of them and they all look great, but there's just one or two things that are just rub you the wrong way where you want to go to another distro.
Yeah.
It's not like there's one perfect distro out there that has everything that one person would like.
Oh no, they all have issues. It depends on your use case, your workflow, what software you use. We all have different needs. The distro for me is not the distro for Dan, not the distro for Tim.
Last night this machine and this issue with live hangouts, man, it aggravated me so much. It was 14 degrees out last night. We had gotten home, the car had it was sitting outside. I was going to go out, start the car, warm it up, start the truck, warm it up, and go for a drive just to throw my laptop out the window. No, seriously, that's how PO'd I was. I was serious. I was sitting there in a pair of gym shorts and a sweatshirt, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to get redressed. I'm going to warm up the truck. I'm going to go for a drive for only the reason to throw this thing out the window.
Like that cliche of getting rid of a pet you don't want, just drive out in the middle of nowhere, leave it there, and then run away.
Oh, God forbid anybody do that. But this laptop, I wouldn't just leave it on a corner somewhere.
Yeah, somebody might pick it up.
Some poor unsuspecting human could pick it up and have the same freaking problems I've got.
Give it to one of those guys that's got a can asking for money on the corner.
Yeah, you're a better man than I. I would enjoy that.
Yeah, you know what?
You just apply a BFH to that unit.
You know what, Dan? The only thing that they would have is a slightly fancier freaking can.
Have you tried Toss's idea on getting a ThinkPad just to do Google on, Hangouts on?
You know, here's the thing. I'm starting to transition over to using Chromebooks. And yeah, go ahead, roast me. I'm a Google service user. I like the convenience. I'm careful with my privacy.
Sure.
But honestly, with where I'm at right now, and you know, stuff that some of you know that I've been going through the last couple of months, but as time is going on, I'm going to spend less and less time farting around with computers, because I just simply want to get up, and whether I spend 5 minutes or 5 hours on a machine, I just want to open the lid, hit the button, type in a password, and do anything that I need to or want to, and then close it and walk away from it and be happy with some good confidence. The next time I do the same thing, it's going to work exactly the same way.
Well, that's why I brought up the ThinkPad.
I have a good operating system for that. Use Windows.
I would not.
No.
I would remember my comment about having a coffee mug with a hole in it just so I could have it. I wouldn't. I have no need for Windows. I have no need for Microsoft. I have no need for Windows.
And for privacy reasons, Windows is probably
Basically, Windows is made just for that, so that you have same experience on any machine, and basically that's the point of Windows. That's why it's so bloated. It made in such a way.
If I was to buy another PC-based machine, I would honestly, I would probably go out to, I'd probably go to Micro Center because I have one close to me, and I would buy a machine without an OS on it, because you can still find those at Micro Center.
You were scaring me there for a second, Tim. I honestly thought you were about to say a Mac, and I was about to say, don't do it.
I'll never buy an Apple machine.
One thing about Micro Center, do not let the salespeople steer you into buying what they want you to buy. Be your own guy.
Yeah, you know what? The Micro Center that's close to me here in the Minneapolis area, I have had a couple of times where I've gone in and I've been very specific. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need. No variance from that. Show me where it is. Yeah. And you got to give these guys credit. They're sales guys. They want to, and most of them are pretty genuine. They want to know what you're up against. Are you having a problem? They want to get all the answers, and they want to help you out and maybe give you better options. But I did find one guy at Micro Center. I can walk in, and he sees me, and as soon as he sees me, he walks up and says, "What do you need today?" I give him my list, or I tell him what's going on, and he just says, "Okay, here's your options," and then I pick the option.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, the guy is awesome. He's really good.
I usually do the store pickup, order it online and just pick it up at the store, because that way I don't have to deal with any of that.
Right.
Actually, last time I got myself a laptop, not too long ago. I got to the store and the guy actually helped me pick the right one up. Mm-hmm. That was like a real surprise to me that they actually helped me.
Madhouse Jack has talked about the Micro Center here in the Twin Cities, the Minneapolis area, and he's exactly right. They never try to upsell. Now, when you go in and buy something, they do try to add on, the tack-on sales.
Warranty, yeah.
Well, not so much a warranty. They actually, hey, how are you doing on thumb drives? What about your mouse still working for you? How about the keyboards? They'll do, how about cables?
Mm-hmm.
And that's cool, because the last 3-4 times I've been at Micro Center doing some stuff for family members and friends, if they wouldn't have asked me about, the stupid stuff like cables, I would have walked out. Yeah. I would have driven for 45 minutes and then had to get back in the truck, turn around, go back.
Funny you mentioned that. That same thing happened to me. I just recently upgraded my CPU, motherboard, and everything. And as I was leaving, the guy's like, "Hey, do you have any thermal paste?" I was like, "Oh no, I don't." Good idea.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And that's the difference between going to someplace. I'm not trying to plug Micro Center, but
yeah,
big difference going to Micro Center than going to
Best Buy or something.
A big box.
Yeah, the guy at Microsoft, Micro Center, excuse me. He like tried to steer me to most of the parts that they had the most of in stock. And I tried to tell this guy, I want to build a powerhouse Linux box. It ain't going to do nothing else. And I had a list of stuff with criteria I wanted it to do. And I had to kind of work him in my direction because he was trying to give me, I wanted a 1,000-watt power supply. He tried to get me an 850 because he had more of them on the shelf than the thousands. There's like 2,000.
Why do you need 1,000-watt power supply, my friend?
Because once he's done with his machine, he wants to make sure there's enough going to the flux capacitor.
No, I have a lot of these old 5 1/4 Western Digital hard drives that I use frequently, and my box here can hold up to 12 of them.
Holy smoke! I actually never saw a 1,000-watt power supply as someone to use. Actually, even a server haven't seen a 1,000-watt power supply that was even half used.
Yeah.
They're popular with the gamers because some of the gamers got 2 and 3 and 4 video cards in their box.
Okay.
And
well, but that's different.
Yeah. Even 2 H50 is well enough.
Yeah.
I normally choose 750 for, and it's like it is like for dual graphics card just enough.
Hey guys, it's time. The Saints kick off here in a few minutes.
Oh no!
So let's get a last word in because I've got to go grab some lunch and then hopefully catch the game here. Andrew, send us out, Andrew.
Okay, well, it's been another interesting online chat. I'm always happy to come. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us. Climby, you got something for us?
Thanks for doing these, DT, as always. They're really fun. I just wanted to say for everyone in the United States, Happy Veterans Day.
Absolutely. Yep.
Woo!
Yep. Silent Robot.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a bit quiet. I'm in the middle of building an ISO, so
okay.
I'm kind of half focused on that and then half focused on the chat.
Yeah. Well, come back and see us. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Dan, you got a last word for us, sir?
Yeah, it's been a really good time hanging out here. It's definitely been educational. I mean, I think we got a lot of educational air out into the group here. I hope somebody out of this got their question answered or some help of some type. And as usual, it's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Yeah. Murray, last word, sir.
Good as usual. I have 2 tips. If you're looking for a used ThinkPad, there's a website, refurb.io. They take them off lease and refurbish them, give you a 1-year warranty. I've bought 4 laptops from them, and they've all been excellent. The other tip is for Firefox. There's a Mozilla add-on called Test Pilot, and it has a new feature called Open in Sidebar. So if you use something like Hacker News, you can drill down on the sidebar and use that as well. And thanks again for letting me join. It's good.
Yeah. Good stuff. Big Pod, last word.
Another week, another shameless plug. I have a YouTube channel, and this time it's actually usable and watchable. I have 3 videos on there.
Yeah, I checked out one of your videos earlier. I think you're a mod, so I think you can post links in the YouTube chat. So give your channel link in the YouTube chat so everybody can subscribe to you.
I posted already.
Okay, all right.
So check it out if you like it. Please subscribe, but otherwise, don't feel obliged to subscribe.
No, everybody here is going to subscribe. Don't worry about it. Tim F., last words.
Thanks again for another awesome stream there, DT. Keep up the stellar and dedicated effort with everything Linux. We appreciate you. And
thank you, sir.
Shameless plug, I just want to repeat it. You guys have a chance, check out Steve's very own. He's getting his channel up and running. Give him a good dedicated pat on the back with a thumbs up or a review of one of his videos, and
Absolutely, big yes on that.
Yep.
And Steve was in the chat for a little bit.
Yep. Everybody take care. And as Climby said, it's Veterans Day here in the U.S. If you happen to be out and about, if you happen to know of a vet, reach out to them, tell them thanks for their service. And anybody watching,
you're welcome.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, Derek.
It wasn't willingly. I was a draftee in the Marine Corps during Vietnam era. This isn't the place to tell stories.
Yeah. Well,
regardless, thank you for your service, and we're glad that you made it home.
Yeah.
All right, Adam.
So you guys know, my mom is an ex-Navy nurse.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Give us the last word, Adam.
Thanks for doing this. It's a better time spent than what I was probably going to do this Sunday morning. But I really enjoy
your Sundays are very boring then.
My life is very boring, yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. I like it. But yeah, guys should check out Pop OS for Big Daddy's Challenge if you haven't already. So enjoy.
Yeah. All right, Ben, what you got for us for a last word?
Well, I am probably going to do something today. I don't know exactly what on this crazy Sunday, but hopefully something better than sitting on my butt on the computer. But nonetheless, I will hope to see you again soon, Derek. It's always fun hanging out with you and that sort of thing. So I'm actually now running Jitsu with GNOME, so I'm running something GNOME related, and I will hopefully have something for Big Daddy's stream next week with Pop OS, something related to that. Anyway, I will. So hopefully that'll happen soon. Anyway, I will see you guys next time.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Ben.
Not a problem.
All right. Kazoku.
Well,
you still with us?
Yeah. It's almost midnight here in Asia. So I'm going to sleep now. Thanks for having
me.
Not a problem.
Yeah. Sleep is overrated.
But it feels good.
All right. Well, come back and see us again, Kaizoku. Thanks for hanging out.
Sure.
Yep. Jacob, you got a last word for us? I know you just arrived, so this will be your first and last word.
Yeah, so, first of all, happy Veterans Day. And Tim, thank you for your service. And, guys, subscribe to Derek. He's awesome. And, I always love these chats. It's fun to just talk about random things with you guys. So, yeah, I'm going to go eat breakfast, but yeah, it was fun hanging out.
All right. Thanks, Jacob.
Just a correction for Jacob there. Jacob, I didn't serve. I think you may have meant Andrew.
Yeah, Andrew.
Okay.
All right. And my last word, of course, is thanking my sponsors, the supporters of the show. Show is made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, David, Leo, Rob, Tony. Also, you see all those fine ladies and gentlemen that support the channel. If you guys want to support the channel, find me over at DistroTube, over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.
Sid.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.